Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming today to our April Lunch and Learn. And we are talking about insurance costs and how it relates to roofs, which I don't think a lot of people realize. And it's becoming something that we always, as real estate agents, have to talk to our clients about is the age of the roof and why it's important. And when we're showing property and when we are listing property, how that roof can affect purchase price. It can affect people's insurance rates. Also, even if you're not thinking about buying or selling, what can you be doing as a homeowner to make sure that you are getting every ounce of, saving every ounce of your money so you're not spending it all on insurance needlessly? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I have two experts here. I have Miss Danielle Johnson with FinPoint Insurance, and her office is located off of Military Cutoff. And you may have seen Miss Danielle at various events that she attends of ours, and she's fantastic. What's nice about Danielle is they can offer all different sorts of insurance products, not just one type. And then we have Monarch Roofing, and we have Paul Atkins and Joel Rushing here to represent their company. And they will talk about the different types of roofs that they work with, how it's helpful. And they have three locations. They have one here, Hilton Head, and Myrtle Beach. So, and I am Desiree Whalen with the Whalen team of Keller Williams Realty. And you can find me at DesireeWhalen.com and my team. So let's go ahead and get started. Enough introductions, and let's get into the meat of it. The first question that I have for you guys is, how does the age of your roof impact insurance? And that might be a Danielle question to start with.
Great question. And as Desiree said, that is if you come to me, that's going to be the number one question that I need to know is the age of the roof. We have several carriers that will write it, but most now are cutting off at 15 years. Some will do 25 years. And if it is over 15 years old, we can write it with JUA. But there are some carriers that will give a discount if it is newer, depending on the age, and then some that don't at all. It can be like, for example, Frontline. No matter if it falls within that 15-year time frame, they don't give an additional discount. But this might be a question we go back to, is if it's a hip roof, which Paul and Joel probably can attest to, a lot of carriers will definitely give you a pretty sizable discount. And JUA, which is the beach plan, also will as well. We'll give you a total hip roof discount. And that can be $400 or $500 sometimes.
Oh, so can you tell me what is JUA?
JUA is the NCJUA. It's the North Carolina Joint Writer Association. They are the beach plan. So they're going to be available for all clients, no matter what. We do have other options for wind, but mainly they're going to be the ones that we write with the most now. And they will write homeowner, they'll write secondary, they'll do HO6. And everything with them would include wind as well, wind and hail insurance. But the main thing is the condition of the roof. I can't stress that enough. We had one actually come through our agency today where they're canceling it because it's got streaks and a little bit of wear, and they want the whole roof replaced. So insurance companies are very, very, very strict now with the guidelines on the roof. But that is like the main question when I have referrals come to me from agents or lenders, knowing the age of that is going to be the most important thing in writing the policy.
Well, good. All right, Joel and Paul, do you guys have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, really important. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
Danielle, I would love to find out who that client is and go inspect their roof. 9 times out of 10, if an insurance company is telling you we're going to boot you, or unless you buy a roof,
right?
They know that there's a high likelihood that there's some damage on there, and that roof's probably in need of replacement. And
Well, here's
most,
the thing, if I don't, not mean to interrupt, but it's a nationwide policy and the home was only built in 2007. So I know, and they're now saying that the roof is, nationwide went and did an inspection because they're an existing client. And they inspected again at the renewal coming up and they said that it has streaks and staining and they're requiring a new roof.
wow, yeah, they're getting tough. And I honestly think it's probably going to get more and more common for 10 years to be the max that anybody is willing to write for a roof, other than a state pool like NCJUA, which, by the way, they are really nice to be with. Now, obviously, you're paying a little bit of a higher rate, but they really do take care of their people, and it's not the
Agreed.
end of the world. Um, the things to I want to kind of jump over. There's just some stuff about us. But this is what they're talking about right here. If you can see on the right here, the streaking. And that is a good indication of age typically. However, I'm helping a homeowner right now that has a less than 10-year-old roof with severe streaking going on, with a warranty claim, because these shingles are supposed to be built with, and what that streaking is algae. And algae grows, especially in hot, humid climates, pretty easily. But the granules on the outside of the shingles have copper in them, and that kills the algae. So if you're seeing streaking and the roof is not malfunctioning, the shingles are not defective, then there's a high likelihood that those shingles have lost a lot of granules, and there's not enough granules on the roof anymore to prevent the algae from growing. So granular loss is something that's really key to understanding a compromised roof system, because granules are like the armor to the shingles. Once they're gone, the asphalt underneath can absorb water, and it doesn't respond well to sunlight either. It heats up, it starts cracking. So basically, once the granules are gone, the roofing system's pretty exposed. So it makes sense that if they're seeing that, they're worried about the roof.
So you think that because they told her that she could power wash it, I don't know. I mean, you're the expert in that part, but
Well,
what
that
do you
sounds like
think on that?
yeah, they probably are. They know a little bit. They know enough to be dangerous, basically,
Right,
because
right.
power washing would make the situation probably worse. You're going to lose more
That's my thought too.
granules, and it's not the streaking that's the issue. It's this the streaking. It is a symptom of the issue. So there's probably some confusion there. If it was purely aesthetics, power washing would be fine, but it wouldn't make the roof any safer. So it's interesting that they're saying that. But generally, insurance companies are getting very weary of covering roofs that may be damaged, and that's one. They probably read somewhere that that's a key indication that there might be damage on the roof, because there's not nothing, but a lot less there to protect it. And what we're seeing with the rise of severe weather, and I think pretty much everybody can agree that no matter what, we're seeing more and more frequent, higher and higher winds all the time. And within the last several years, that it's been shocking to me, the difference in just a couple years ago, how often we would get excessive winds. It'd be a few times a year, mostly around hurricane season. And now it's coming, we've had 5 so far in 2024 on the coast here. And if I was an insurer, I wouldn't want to cover roofs either, because they over time, they stand up to wind less and less and less. And if you're in an area that wind is going to hit, so say the first time wind hits it, it's a 10-year-old roof, it does fine. And then it gets hit 5 more times with high wind. A 10-year-old roof should be able to withstand high wind pretty easily. But on the fourth or the fifth time, it starts to fail. And then if you wait 6 months, heat it up, cool it down, get it hot, wet and dry a bunch of times, and it gets hit with another dose of high wind, pretty much it's gonna have some issues with the shingles. So that's what they're worried about there.
Now, what can a homeowner do then? If with that said, I mean, the roof is only 2007. What can they do to help ease some of that?
What we're trying to work on with GAF, and we're very closely aligned with GAF.
What's
And
GAF?
that's a roofing manufacturer. They're
Okay.
arguably the world's premier roofing manufacturer. They've been around for 150 years, since 1886. They're the largest in North America. They invented the architectural shingle. They were the first to get 130 mile an hour wind rated shingle. They're the first to get 180 mile an hour wind rated shingle. And we work alongside them quite a bit. We're very on very good terms with them. We install other shingles too quite a bit, especially in landfall, but we like them the most because of their quality, their focus on the only making roofing products, and they're standing behind their warranties. And that's what I was getting to, is they have a non-depreciating material warranty and an unlimited wind warranty. And that unlimited wind warranty, and when I say unlimited, I mean no miles per hour wind can void it. It doesn't matter if you get hit with a tornado. If your house happened to stand up to a tornado, the shingles will get put back on for free, including labor. And that is part of the warranty, is good for 15 years. So if we can, what we're trying to work with GAF to do is to go to insurers, because everybody's trending to this 10-year now and saying, hey, that's all these roofs are really good for. And a lot of times, a lot of roofs really on the coast, with code being the way it is, are pretty much good for 10 years. And after that, they're pretty much shot. But when you have this ironclad warranty that backs it up, it takes away the necessity to make an insurance claim. And what we want the insurance companies to do is say, if there's a sign off with, if there's a presented warranty that it's a non-depreciating warranty, that they would allow exemptions for people to keep their roofs without having to buy new ones. Part of that too is another joint venture that GAF is embarking with IBHS, which is the parent company of Fortified Building, and really bringing forward Fortified basically nationwide, because we're not just seeing severe weather here. You know, in the Midwest, they're seeing a lot of hail and tornadoes. Then you get to the other coast, you have again high wind again. What we're seeing in general is severe weather for whatever reason right now is something that America and really the world is going to have to deal with more often than we dealt with say 20, 30 years ago.
Well, what about if shingles are deteriorating faster than we anticipated, because we're told that, oh, it has a 35-year shingle. You know, builders are putting on 35-year shingle. Well, what you're saying is that's not true. The way that the wind is happening, you're really getting a 10-year roof no matter what you get.
Generally, there's a lot of steps you can take to make that go to 20 years. You're still going to have a rough time getting to 30. The steps in fortification, drip edge is a huge component of that. Drip edge is not required in North Carolina. They stripped it out of code. It's a necessary part of the roof in almost all other states. We put it on every roof that we put on, even if we have to lose money doing so. And because it's vital to stopping wind damage. There's other things like a peel and stick starter strip, which is also not required here in North Carolina. That locks your shingles down onto the drip edge at the edges, and stopping wind damage at the edges. And at your eaves, which are parallel with the ground, and the rakes, which go up to up to the peak, is if you stop the shingles there from wiggling. And another thing you might notice is realtors, people here aesthetically love that long overhang where the shingle is way past the fascia. Well, if there's not drip edge there, that's a really bad design because it exposes a lot of the shingle to the wind. And so it starts wiggling at the edge right away anytime it blows. And every time it's wiggling, you got to remember it's below another shingle, which is below another shingle, which is below another shingle. So this one's pushing on this one and wiggling, and this one's wiggling underneath the other one. What that's doing is slowly breaking the adhesive bond between the shingles. And then once that adhesive bond is broken, the only thing holding the shingles on are the nails at the top, and they can just flap like this. Eventually, a high wind is going to come and then they flap up and water can go in, and that's a wind damaged, compromised roofing system.
So if you have a roof now, can you put that drip edge in there after the fact, or does that have to go in before?
You can, but it's it's a very costly repair, and you could end up replacing, because you have to take at least 2 rows of shingles
No.
off. So you're talking about most roofs, 30% of your entire roof being replaced. So I don't generally advise it unless the roof is very young, but it's going to be major work to the roofing system. It should definitely be done, if possible, when the roof is done. Now, if you don't have it and you have a fairly young roof, and you're going to spend less money doing that than buying a new roof, at that point, if I knew I was investing in this house and wanting to stay there, and it was something very important to me, I would do it at that point. Say, when I say very young, no more than 5 years.
And what are your thoughts, Joel, on metal roof and the clay tile as well? What's the actual life expectancy on those? Because I do have a lot of clients with a metal roof.
Yeah, so we are certified in all major forms of roofing.
Yeah, like that one, these little clay things.
So clay tile and concrete tile, most of the quote unquote clay tile in Wilmington is concrete tile, which is what we're actually looking at here. And I'll tell you one thing, it doesn't get damaged by wind. It is, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And if it's built correctly, it can last generations. You just have to slowly, over time, things are going to hit the tiles. They're going to need to be replaced, but they can be replaced without harming the other parts of the roof. And that's why you see this in Europe on buildings that are, hundreds and hundreds of years old. And it's why you see it a lot in Florida, which is originally where I'm from. It's extremely expensive, and it does require upkeep, but as long as you're willing to, say invest a few hundred in your roof every few years, 2 to 3 years, it could literally last hundreds of years. Slate's the same way. As long as the underlayment underneath is waterproof and the construction was sound from start to finish, those types of roofing systems are made to endure. They are also priced like they are. A standing seam would be, which is this blue metal roof. I'm big fan of those, though they're not, to me, very aesthetically pleasing. I know a lot of people like the style of it. It's just personal. It looks a bit too, I don't know, corporate. But for stopping wind at the beach, it's probably the best solution. Now, when people say metal, they think all, and not you necessarily, but there's several different types of metal roofing systems, and there's some that you really would be doing well to avoid completely. And that is the kind of metal roofing system that has exposed fasteners. So if you've ever looked at a metal roof and seen dots on top of it, especially if they're brown dots, because most of the time that means they're rusted. That's the kind that has exposed fastener, commonly called master rib or a barn roof. It's one panel that is just another panel's on top of it, and then there's a screw holding those two panels together and in onto the roof deck. And what happens is metal expands and contracts in the heat. So as it heats up, the sun hits this one first, it starts pulling this way. Then this one starts warming up and it starts pulling this way, and it's working the screw out. And this happens on a daily basis. So you have this tension going on the roof on a daily basis. And I've seen less than a year old exposed fastener systems with screws that have worked themselves out. So if you have the screws out of place, obviously water can go right in there. So you have, by design, a roofing system with thousands of holes in it just waiting to open up. At the very least, you have to replace those screws every 10 years. There is a screw made that does not corrode. However, it can still get itself worked out. So that I stay away from. They're about 30 to 50% more expensive than a standard architectural shingle roof. The standing seam is about 2 to 3 times more expensive than a shingle roof, but it could also be the last roof you ever purchase. And if you're gonna, hand eventually your house over to your kids, they would probably not have to buy a new roof either, unless a tornado hits. The thing with standing seam is you do have to recoat it every 30 to 40 years if you're close to the salt air. Eventually the paint will corrode, and then eventually, even though it's aluminum and there's no iron in it, the acidity of the air here will eventually get to it. So you want to keep recoating it every 30 to 40 years. But it's basically impervious to wind, and the fasteners are locked in underneath the panels, and the panels are floating independently side by side, hooked to the fasteners underneath. So this one can expand as it needs to without hurting this one, and wind just goes right over it. And it's very, I would like to know if there is a insurance discount for a standing seam roof near the beach, because there should be. If there's not, it's much stronger than a shingle roof.
Yeah, not that I'm aware. Now, some will give you, discounts for the metal roof, but not the standing seam that I'm aware of. But that's a great question, because
Yeah, they shouldn't give you a
I
discount
agree
for the other.
wholeheartedly with you. And these clay tiles, I've got, some homes in landfall that I insure, and they last forever.
Yeah, and there's also, by the way, in landfall, I've just discovered there's some fake slate in there that's made out of, what, Hardy, like Hardy board.
Mhm.
Hardy made a roofing product that is the same as their siding, and it looks like slate. And a lot of people are in there thinking they have slate roofs, and really they have fiber cement roofs that are crumbling and letting water through. So if you have anybody in there that said, "Hey, I've got this slate roof, it seems to be a big problem," there's a high chance that it's not slate. But in case, that's just a side note.
Interesting. Oh, great to know.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
So the fortified roofs, is that, what really is a fortified roof? Does it make any difference? And how much more, is it? And Danielle, do you really get a difference in insurance, or is it just because once you have a fortified roof, insurance companies know that in 10 years they may or may not ask you?
Yeah, well, a great question too. Frontline gives a really good discount on fortified roofs, and then the beach plan will also give a discount as well. And Joel could probably attest to this. I just know that it's pretty costly to do a fortified roof. But again, I've had people call and ask me, should I do it? Should I not? And I advise them to check into the prices because I know they're different tiers. I believe it like goes silver, gold, bronze, silver, gold, I believe is what it is. But
Yeah, like what makes it fortified?
that would be more of a Joel question.
Yeah, so I didn't know that Frontline gave a discount. I'm
They
gonna start
do.
letting people know that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And it's
It-
pretty substantial.
the how much it costs depends on who's putting your roof on. And I don't mean that in any kind of tongue-in-cheek way. Um, we build roofs higher than code. Like I said before, we put on drip edge, we use peel and stick starter strips, we use ice and water shield. Um, we do a lot of the things that aren't necessarily required in North Carolina because it's what roofing manufacturers say you should do in a high wind and high rain environment. So we do it. A lot of those same things are part of fortified. So when our traditional quote for a new roof, the fortified, to make it fortified doesn't cost us that much more. There's just a few more steps that we need to take, and most of that has to do with labor and nails, but nails aren't really that expensive, but labor is. And so for us, it's typically a few thousand more than our standard roof. So if you're looking at let's just pick an average size, say 3,000 square foot house or 2,000 square foot roof. So, 2,500 square foot house. It's going to be between $2,000 and $3,000 typically additional. It depends on the makeup of that roofing system, but if it's a fairly simple design, it should be right in there. And I'll go right now into what goes into it. But Fortified was a program designed and is a program designed by IBHS, which is an independent, insurance industry funded research center. And they basically they have this amazing research facility where they put full on houses in wind tunnels and they're built to code, and then they blow wind on them until they collapse. They can shoot hail, they can shoot, they simulate rain of all different types and frequencies. Really, really cool stuff. And after doing testing for about 5 years, they figured out, hey, there's some significant things that a few steps that really make the roof, first of all, and then the house stand up to severe weather a lot more. And that's the different levels she was referring to. So the bronze is a fortified roof. So you can fortify a roof when you put it on. You can do that to an old home or a new home. Fortified silver is the roof and then all the windows. And that can also be done retrofitted. Fortified gold cannot be retrofitted. Fortified gold is starting from the foundation and is including the doors and the walls, and it has to be done while the house is being built. So you can fortify up to silver with any house that you have, as long as it has a good actual foundation. It's not dry stacked. And there's the spacing of the trusses or rafters are less than 24 inches apart, which is also code. So if your house was built to code, that should be there. But I've seen plenty of instances here where they have 24 and a half, 25. And you can't have gapped decking. So if you have a really old house that was, say, built in the 1800s or early 1900s, where they used 1x6s stacked next to each other as the roof deck, and there's a little gap in between, you can't fortify that, but there's an additional step. You'd have to deck over it. You'd have to put plywood down on top of it, which is an additional cost. But anyway, getting into the weeds on that, essentially fortified is a way to stop wind primarily here. And there's also the impact resistant shingles, which is more for hail, but most of it is strengthening the edges of the roof, sealing the roof deck against water, and keeping the roof deck attached to the house, which sounds pretty basic, but what you see, and again, I grew up in Florida, and you see some devastating hurricanes just demolish houses. What happens first is when a Category 5 hits a house, the roof deck generally lifts just a little bit off of its moorings, basically, and that creates such a huge amount of pressure change, the walls give out, and then the house comes down. Or it lets in so much water that the walls give out from inside due to taking on so much water when they weren't intended to. So the first step in fortified is, once you have all the old material off, or if you're building a new one, once you've put the roof deck in place, you want to nail it down with ring shank nails, and they have to be 2 3/8 inch, so they're pretty long, onto the beams and rafters. So ring shank nails, they have these, I don't know if you can see in here, but they almost look like screws. If you do that, you can apply any amount of wind to the house, the roof deck will never separate. And now to destroy that house, you have to hit it with a tornado level wind, and the walls and the roof are destroyed at the same time, but the roof deck doesn't start coming off. So that's very important. Then you want to waterproof the roof deck. So a good roof should already have water resistant shingles. Everybody should be using a waterproof underlayment at this point. Felt, by the way, is all that's required by code here, but a waterproof synthetic is really no more expensive, and everybody should be using it. So you get a waterproof underlayment. You should have ice and water shield. You should have starter strips, which are waterproof on your edges. Then underneath all of that, you waterproof the deck itself by taping the seams of the plywood or OSB with waterproof tape. Contrarily, you can also ice and water shield the entire roof deck, but down here in North Carolina, that is going to lock in a lot of heat and moisture underneath, and we want that getting out of the attic, not kept in. So the waterproof tape does basically the same thing. It just serves as a third redundancy in waterproofing above the house. You also have to use about 100% more nails in your underlayment. Underlayment is the paper underneath the shingles. What that's intended is to keep, if you do have a hurricane, which you're going to lose shingles in a hurricane regardless, just it's going to happen. So if the shingles come off in a hurricane, the underlayment doesn't flap up in the wind and let water underneath it. Drip edge. Does everybody know what drip edge is? Does anybody know what drip edge is?
Well, you explained it earlier, because that was my question. Does that include drip edge?
So drip edge is required in fortified. You have to use it, and not only do you have to use it, you have to use about 75% more nails on it. So normal drip edge is, it's about 1.5 to 2 inch strip on the top of your, so it'd be like if this was a roof deck, it'd be sitting right here, and you just nail it down, like going down here. But it's so thin that if fortified says, well, you have to use 75% more nails, you're going to be nailing literally right next to each other. You're going to start bending this aluminum piece, and it's going to be unusable. So what you do is use a really thick piece of drip edge that reaches way up the roof deck. So now you're clamped kind of way up here instead of just at the edges. And what that does is now wind won't rip the drip edge off in a really bad storm. You also have to use peel and stick starter strips. It's required. Again, we're already doing a lot of those things, and buying the slightly larger drip edge versus the normal drip edge isn't a big cost increase for us. We're already buying the peel and stick starter strips. Now we're just doing about several hours more nailing, both to the roof deck and then to the underlayment. We're already using the right kind of underlayment. So that brings me back to how much does it cost? So if somebody's a contractor is building just to code, you know, you could easily spend 5,000 more on a, you know, 2,500 square foot roof. For us, that's not the case. And there's other, we're not the only ones who build above code. I'm not trying to brag that way, but many builders, whether they're home builders or roofing contractors or whatever they are, they just do what is necessary to meet code, if that, or try to get away with not doing that and making it look like they did. And that's where a lot of the problems and then the additional cost is going to come.
So after any sort of strong storm, do you recommend having you guys come out just to look at everything to make sure it's, you know, set? Like, what should we be doing?
If your roof is, you know, 5 years old, and you know who built it. Now, if it's a brand new home, most of the time it's going to be a brand new home. A lot of times the roofing contractors can't be reached because there were just different groups of people that the builder worked with at different times. And there's really probably not a warranty on that. But still, IBHS has basically said at year 5, roofs are actually stronger than when they were built. Everything has basically solidified at that point. You basically should have a very strong roofing system unless something was done incorrectly at that point. So unless you see some things, I'll go through some other things about what you can see. I mean, it never hurts. Again, we're going to do it for free. We're going to give you pictures of everything that we find, whether it's good or bad, and you'll be able to know what's going on. But it's really after year 10, like we said, that's that kind of magic number, because it's endured a lot already, and we're also 10 years is right where a lot of roofs are going to be able to be repaired at year 10, and a lot of roofs are not going to be able to be repaired at year 10, depending on what they've, you know, what's happened to them and how well the house is ventilated. Hip roofs are great for standing up to wind. The problem with hip roofs is modern ventilation for roofing system relies on equal amount of intake and output. So intake underneath the eaves of the house, and then output at the ridge. And what you do when you have hips is you take the ridge and sometimes you reduce it to nothing. There's actual true pyramid hip roofs. And now you have lots of intake all the way around because you have more eaves, because what used to be a gable end didn't have eave, it was just the end. Now it's another eave, and you have even less area for the air to escape. So hot, humid air is coming in to the attic and it's staying there, and it absorbs into the roof deck, which heats up the wood, and then it cooks the shingles from underneath. So if you do have a hip roof, which great, if you do, that's great for wind. Look at getting a attic fan installed, especially the solar attic fans. They work great. They have almost no problems. They have long warranties. They don't pull from your electricity, and they're going to help you save money on your electricity. They're also going to really make your shingles last a lot longer than they would otherwise.
Is that something, if we had you come and look at the roof, that you would say, oh, you know, you could do this to save?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, you can basically just know now if you have a hip roof or some hips, and they only cost, you know, if you're doing it with the roof, we only charge $475 for them. They're about $800 if we need to come out and retrofit them onto an older roof, just because we have to do more work around it, and we have to replace some shingles, things like that. But if you can benefit from having that, and I would encourage anybody that has a hip roof to get one. And again, if your roof's over 10 years old, you know, and you want one, I'm gonna have to evaluate your roof on a case-by-case basis as to whether or not we're willing to work on it. If it's already in a condition where it's now pretty brittle because it's been overheated for its whole life so long, we would have to decline working on it, because we know that if we move a shingle to do anything, that shingle is now compromised, and then we'd have to replace that shingle, which moves another shingle, and that shingle becomes compromised.
Okay, we have about 15 minutes left. Danielle, when you are looking to buy a house or buy a home or sell a home, what are the top things that you think that we should be looking at to help our clients?
So as the realtor, is
Yes.
what you're asking? Okay. The roof age, definitely the hot water heater. That's another big one that has that we need to know. If there's any polybutylene in the home, usually in the early 90s, that is when it was used a lot, because most carriers it's ineligible with. And then, about another one about animal breeds. We have to know about that too, but that would be more, I guess, from the client standpoint. But the main one is if it was built in the 90s, the polybutylene, because there are really not many options at all for that.
Okay. And
But the
then,
top three things would be the roof, the hot water heater, and then the plumbing.
okay. And
They're
then,
not so much concerned about the HVAC, which is interesting.
yeah,
But they do, but it's not as big of a concern.
it's an expensive concern.
It is, yes, absolutely.
I'm concerned about
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
So Joel, what would you say if somebody's wanting to buy or sell a house? What do you think that we should be doing to prepare?
Well, what I always tell realtors, or a homeowner, if it's looking to sell, is if your roof's 10 to 12 years old, the buyer is going to knock you down the cost of a roof. So the first thing they're going to do is have a home inspector come out, and the home inspector is going to say, well, I see some things going on up there that need attention. And then you're going to call a roofing contractor, and we're going to say, hey, there's some things going on up there, but this roof's not in good enough shape to work on. And they're going to say, okay, you owe us $25,000 off the price of this house so that we can get a good roof on here. And that's a good tactic if you're a buyer's agent. But if you're looking to sell, or you're a listing agent, getting out ahead of that. So get those same roofing contractors that are reputable. Like, please look up people's reviews. Make sure that they've been around a while. The average roofing contractor only lasts a year and a half. They can't really know that much or be that high quality if they've only been doing it that long. Make sure that they are actually contracted. They're actually general contractors. They have licenses. They have insurance. This sounds, silly, but there's a lot of people in this space that are not really qualified to be doing what they're doing. But if say this slide right here, we come out here and there is wind damage on a roof, and it's irreparable. Something that we are good at doing is making the insurance company, the wind and hail provider, understand the difference between a roof that is slightly damaged by wind at, say, 5 years old, which would, if you tried to file a claim for that, it's going to be underneath your deductible, and one that 12 years old, then, and demonstrating to them, not just telling them, but we will actually demonstrate to them how repairing the roof is going to harm the whole roofing system. And you could get a claim on a 12-year-old slightly damaged roof like this one to the right, and pay your deductible. And now you have, if you work with a contractor like us, a really good warranty that can be passed to the new homeowner, and you can actually increase the price that you're listing for, because you have this 50-year material warranty. You have this unlimited wind warranty that is transferring to the new owner untouched. It doesn't change in any way. And all you've put into it generally is $2,500. So instead of getting knocked down $25,000, you could ask even more than you were originally going to list it for. Things to look for if you are listing agent, buying agent, or just somebody, anything, anybody with a house, is obviously lifted shingles, missing shingles, shingles in your yard. If this is flashing right here, anywhere that there is a roof and a wall meeting each other, there has to be metal in between to serve to waterproof that area. If it's lifted, if it's separated from the roofing system or from the wall, it's not going to function properly. So just looking at the metal there and saying, does that look like it's kind of separating? That should let you know that there's a problem there. Obviously, if you have ceiling stains, these are the big three common leak causers on roofs. Flashing, like I just said, on here you can see it separating from the wall, not the roof. That's counter flashing. Pipe vents, people don't really pay attention to pipe vents, but the lead ones that we see so often, those are actually really good because they don't corrode here at the beach. But squirrels chew them open. They love sharpening their teeth on them, and eventually they will gnaw them down until they're wide open and like let water in. Rubber ones will dry rot. So something to pay attention to on your roof now, or if you're selling or if you're buying a house and somebody's like, oh, I just installed that roof, 7 years ago. Are the pipe boots rubber? Because at year 10, the rubber pipe boots are going to start dry rotting and they need to be changed right then, because that's probably the last time that roof's going to have be in workable condition. So paying attention to what the pipe boots are and how old they are. We use a product that's made out of neoprene and doesn't dry rot. I can get into that at a different time. But 99% of all pipe boots are either going to be rubber or lead. And when I say boot, I just mean the flashing around the pipe. Excuse me. And then skylights. I hopefully, skylights. I'm a big. I hate skylights. It never makes sense to me to put a giant hole in your roof. It will fail at some point. And they also have rubber seals, and the rubber seals dry rot. And my advice to anybody with skylights is fill them in. Because just think about being in a hurricane and you have this fortified roof, but then you have this large glass opening on top. That now is your weakest point in the whole house. So pay attention to skylights. At the very least, you want to make sure somebody looks at those and make sure that they get pictures of what the seals look like. You don't see little tiny cracks around them. And a solution there is not caulking them, because the caulk can last months, not years. Those are the big things to be paying attention to. That's really it. The rest is really about us.
Does anybody have any other questions that they may want to ask? Because this was more information they 100% anticipated about
I could
roofs
talk
and
about
what to
roofs
do.
all day long too, because that's
I
I love
know.
them.
This is a lot more informational, and I think so much more beneficial than I imagine. And I hope a lot of people watch this, because it was very good and very informative. Does anybody have any questions? And if not, Danielle and Joel, what would you like to leave us with?
Well, I have a question for Danielle. Are there any other companies besides NCJUA and Frontline that give discounts for a fortified roof?
not that I'm aware of. ICAT may, but not that I'm aware of, and I've been doing this a long time. But yeah, they'll ask about it, but they don't actually give a discount for it. So, but Frontline I write a lot with Frontline, and they do, for sure.
And is Frontline in general not what I've heard from adjusters? And adjusters, you hear out lots of different things, but they're not wanting to write policies for houses, not just roofs that are older than 10 years is what I'm being told.
In New Hanover and Brunswick, that is true. It has to be a 2005 or newer, but that's only for those counties. Pender, Onslow, they will still write as well. But it has
Got
to be
it.
2005 or new, because they were just getting saturated with business, so they put that restriction on.
Got
That's
it.
been a couple of years now.
So will that say you have a 7-year-old house now, is it gonna age out in 3 years?
Yes, and we're starting to see that where they're sending out letters to people like next year at your renewal, you're gonna have to replace the roof. So we are getting those, our clients are getting those letters.
Wow.
So they're definitely on, they don't just write the policy and never revisit it. They're
No,
gonna, at renewal, a lot of times they're, especially like you were saying, they're really tightening up. They're sending out having other, inspections done again on homes that have been insured with them for, 3 or 4 years.
yep. Everybody is, and it's not just frontline, even NCJUA, which they're really nice and easy to work with.
But they do it too.
They're tightening.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, they can't kick you off or anything like that, but just you're gonna see there's no way to have this combination of more severe weather, more people knowing that their roofs can be replaced by insurance. And I hate to say it, but there's definitely some bad actors in the roofing industry as well. All those things coming together, the insurance companies have to do something. And part of that is making things stricter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Desiree, you were saying like one thing to leave, I would just say, just be honest with your agent and let them know, as much information on the front end as possible. And you know this about me too. I try to underwrite everything on the front end so we don't have issues on the back end and get issued a cancellation like right during hurricane season, because then where are we going to write it? So just trying to, make sure that we have all the information up front is just the best thing that a client can do.
So it sounds like it's probably a good idea if you have a roof that's starting to age out, to get a home equity line of credit out of your house so that you can afford to put on a new roof.
Right, right. But I agree with Joel. I think he's absolutely correct. We're going to start seeing it go to 10 years rather than 15, because when I started in this, it was 25, some 30, then it went to 20. Now it's 15. And so I guess before we know it, it'll be 5. Hopefully not, but
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. I think when it starts to get to 10, and if anybody starts moving lower than that, you're going to see some different materials starting to be used more frequently. There's going to have to be innovations. I think shingles days are numbered. The real solution that's not more, vastly more expensive, I don't think is there yet. But necessity is the mother of invention, and I think we're hitting that. We've got to find a material that stands up better than shingles does.
absolutely. Agreed.
Okay.
Joel,
right.
you were so
Thank
helpful.
you so much for having us.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much. You were so helpful, Joel. And Paul, I really appreciate it. Desiree Lee, as always, thank you.
You are most welcome, and thank you guys for participating. I really enjoyed this. It was incredibly informative. We're going to go ahead and send this out to our clients, and in fact, we're going to put this in our newsletter, because I think it's that important for people to start to really listen to this. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
All right.
Appreciate
Bye,
that.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.